First of all, welcome to this video series with Cosmos Hub, and thank you for taking your time out of Cosmos for this. I think to begin with, could you give us like a quick introduction about you, which project you're working with, and what is your role?
Yeah, sure. My name is Joni, also known as Curious J. I work at ATOM Accelerator DAO for Cosmos Hub. I consider myself a core contributor. I was there since the inception of the AADAO as oversight after our second mandate. Realized that getting more involved into the grant process was more of my niche, and migrated towards the reviewing of grants. My role kind of evolved as AADAO expanded to do multiple roles. So whether it's talking to teams to recruit for ICS chains, whether it's being involved in more strategic decisions, venture investments, marketing. So yeah, I'm involved in basically all aspects.
Can you tell us like how did you get started, or how did you come across the Cosmos Hub?
Yeah, Cosmos was interesting. So I got started in crypto in 2017, and I stuck around out of curiosity. That's why I called myself Curious J. But I stuck around and researched and observed how the blockchain ecosystem was developing. I discovered a chain called Icon, and they were doing something with interoperability and governance. They ultimately failed, but then that made me discover Cosmos ecosystem, where they were doing something similar, but I discovered that this tech was being utilized a lot more. Back then, Terra was huge, Thorchain adopted it, and even Binance Beacon Chain, as well as Matic, right, used some kind of forked Tendermint. So I saw that there's a lot of potential here if these giants are utilizing this technology. So got myself immersed more and more, discovered Cosmos Hub. And back then, Cosmos Hub was still very primitive, where it was, a multi-billion-dollar chain, but it didn't have any specific utility to it. So I was always like excited to see what route it would take, whether it was security, whether it's utilizing IBC on some sort of action. So upon like being immersed into that, I wanted to contribute and be part of like its growth and its direction. And I got offered an opportunity after being vocal on doing a couple threads, being on calls with some key contributors. And I got scouted by the AADAO co-founders. Initially, I was even opposed to AADAO, but discovered that, for the first time, that was an opportunity where the hub had a core team to try to lead and keep the development going. So that's how I got started.
So what's your typical day in your role working with ATOM Accelerator DAO?
Yeah, typical day, conversations, a lot of conversations. You open up your Telegram and you have 12 messages per group chat. So it involves many teams, right? Cosmos is ever expanding. There's always a lot of teams that wanted to build, wanted to go to grants. So my day involves opening and trying to see what meetings I have first. I have a lot of early morning meetings due to time differences. In between meetings, I will look at conversations in the Telegram, see what is progressing, what isn't. Then I will look at our grants, which grants we have to review. And then finally, after grants, we look at the previous teams that we have funded and check on their progress. So it's a lot of communication between other teams, but yeah.
There's a lot of talk about, of course there was Carter's keynote as well, and there's a lot of talk about which direction Atom's gonna go there. There's ICS, there's Hydro, a lot of momentum these modules are getting. What's your vision about where Cosmos Hub will be in the coming 1 to 2 years?
Yeah, that's a $1 million question, right? Everybody is fixating on Hub finding its purpose and its direction. And that's why we did that panel. But from my personal perspective, I think in terms of product, it's really hard for the Hub to compete in terms of doing something with Hydro, because we have, let's say, Aerodrome on base that is, arguably a lot more successful. With interchain security, we had a massive lead, but now it's being overshadowed by Babylon, by EigenLayer, right, where they have the branding and the effect of Ethereum ecosystem to secure. So it's harder to compete on that end. And I see a lot of technology being adapted by Cosmos, yet none of the value went back to Atom. So from my perspective, I think utilizing the hub's liquidity to invest into these emerging technologies that utilize the Cosmos core tech stack has the hub become immortal in a way where it's ever growing with all of these new technologies and new ecosystems. So I see towards that route in terms of the liquidity aspect. Protocol and liquidity, distributions, venture investments, and then rebalancing the community pool to grow the value of ATOM and actually give value back to the stakers.
I'm pretty sure like once you got into crypto, you like sort of explored other ecosystems as well. What is one thing that you find that is like uniquely different about Cosmos than the other its peers?
Yeah, I think Cosmos is truly one of the most innovative ecosystems. Most of the innovation, at least in the tech and infra, has come from Cosmos, right? We innovated on the app chain thesis. We innovated on IBC, right? The Tendermint consensus is the most utilized one on proof of stake. So the next innovation in blockchain is likely going to come from Cosmos, and that's where I really see the special thing about it. The next is just being so sacrificial in the fact that this tech is free to use for many teams, and I think that's what attributed to its success overall, right? Anyone can come in, utilize the tech, and grow value through their own ecosystem. So I think that part is going to remain, whether chains die and live or survive, but the Cosmos value in that aspect is something that is truly special.
The original vision about IBC was also that it will, after a point, extend to cross-chain transactions basically, and collaborating with other blockchains. How do you think that ICS and Hydro both can sort of foster this cross-chain collaboration with other chains like Ethereum or Bitcoin, and how that can be pivotal for Cosmos Hub? Yeah,
I think if we were to utilize Hydro in conjunction with ICS, one way we can do it is talk to these layer 2s or even smart contract protocols on other ecosystems to incentivize with liquidity, but also those protocols that have grown large enough where they can essentially be their own chain, right? DYDX proved that it could be done. Now we have the utility of, instead of inflating your token to death, you can secure it by ATOM and utilize that token in a more productive way. So having these protocols bid for the liquidity that they need to migrate and get started on Cosmos in conjunction with the security that you inherit can be a great way for them to have their own custom chain. The more we progress, the more app chain thesis is proving itself. So that's one direction that I see it.
What is one thing that makes you bullish about Cosmos?
One thing that makes me bullish about Cosmos, I think really the spirit of building here. We are kind of like a chew glass community. We may not have the most funding or the most hype, but we still end up building some of the most important technology for blockchain. So I think that is going to remain, and if we can find a way to capture all that value that we produce, then I'm the most bullish it gets for ecosystem.
What is one metric, according to you, that is a great measure of Cosmos Hub's growth?
Cosmos Hub's growth, a metric. I would say the biggest metric would be developer activity and mindshare. There's no real way to quantify that. The reason is because, look, the hub isn't really meant to be a smart contract hub, right? So you can't measure the volume or the activity on that. I would say the mindshare in the fact that you have high quality philosophical approaches on the forums and on the governance, but also developers being innovative in that sense. So I think that's how you would measure it, if that spirit, if that activity is still here. And then second thing to measure is really the most success would be just the stakers themselves, right? It prioritizes on security, and I think increasing that ratio is the most obvious metric for if you want to quantify it.
What is one project or since you work with grants that you worked with that sort of really made you see the impact of your role on the Cosmos Hub?
There's a lot. I think one of them was working with Asteroid Protocol. The reason I say that is because it brought on a new change in culture where it made things a little bit more fun, right? Cosmos Hub has been known mostly for governance, mostly for the debates, right? But Asteroid simplified it and made it easy where it saw that the hub was neutral and it was almost like the perfect chain to launch inscriptions, right? And so I worked with a team so they can innovate and build like an AI launchpad, launch their own token, build an inscription bridge, CFT20 bridge to Neutron. So adding a new culture, new fun to the hub was one of the most impactful for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump into this like rapid fire
Sure.
session of sorts. ATOM as a token, should you sell it or compound it?
Compounded.
Okay. What are your favorite tools, dApps, or platform in the Cosmos Hub?
Okay, so wallet-like, I've been a fan of Leap. I think they're a great team. In terms of DeFi protocols, I've been really liking Amulet now. Well, obviously we also worked with the team, so I feel comfortable with that. Drop is also something new, exciting that I utilize. You know, Neutron ecosystem is growing, so and obviously Asteroid, just anytime you wanted to launch your token there for fun or mint an inscription, those are my go-tos.
Who should be the CEO of Cosmos?
CEO of Cosmos. You know, it's funny. I think honestly the CEO of Cosmos should probably be somebody outside of Cosmos. The reason why is that sometimes we put ourselves in a bubble where we fail to see like the activity and development that's going outside of it, right? Like Solana captured that retail moment where, you know, Base is, and with Ethereum is capturing more of like the institutional approach. So having someone with a vision, I would say charisma, right? We need that charisma that, like, we have a lot of talented developers. We need that fierce charisma that can say, hey, I'm stepping in, I'm gonna lead. This is the direction where we go. Cosmos Hub, it's almost like too decentralized for its own good, at least at this stage. Not that the vision isn't great, but you still need some leadership to kind of get it to where it needs to be. So I can't really think of anybody specific. You know, it would probably be a mix of Vitalik for philosophy, Anatoly for just the business development, and then Do Kwon, which is, you know, a little bit of a spicy take, but for the charisma. So if we can find somebody with a combination of that, I think it can be a serious impact for the hub.
What do you think about ICS? Is it a safety net or is it like a more of a growth accelerator for Cosmos Hub?
Yeah, so interchain security is actually like a very innovative. I think its success will likely rely on enterprise businesses wanting to build their own chain and have their own settlement. I think that's where the real killer use case is. The reason why I say that is because right now the app chain thesis is correct, but not everything really deserves to launch a chain. You can launch as a smart contract first, see how you grow, right? Check your value metrics. Do you need to actually launch a chain to scale better? But for businesses, they rather have their own private blockchain. And I think if they can inherit the security of the hub, their interoperability of IBC, right, and some liquidity from this ecosystem, I think that's where it shines.
Why do you think cosmonauts should hold ATOM?
Why do I think they should hold ATOM? One is the intrinsic value of the history behind it. Two is you'll expect more airdrops. One through venture investments, grants, and then other teams that are going to want to build. We also try to maximize that opportunity by showcasing, you know, the historical ROI of airdrops. There's also a snapshot program we did with Numia, where it's like any team that wants to utilize an airdrop campaign, they can use our Snapchat for free if you consider ATOM stakers, right? So, you know, continuing on that airdrop phenomenon moving forward. Three is the massive growth potential. I think, you know, given the amount of drama that has happened within the ecosystem, we're arguably like at its lowest in the sentiment, but at its highest in development. So you have that, you know, that contrast there where it feels like this is a bottom vibes based on all the development that I see.
What's a project that's like a dark horse in Cosmos? Like it's building momentum, but it's still not yet discovered by the mass markets?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could probably argue Neutron is kind of like a DeFi dark horse chain, because there's a lot of hype around Bearer chain building, Movement Labs, Sui, and whatnot. But Neutron kind of inherited that Terra the builder culture, where you have like Delphi launching great protocols like Mars, Astroport, and then you have Lido team launching, you know, drops, right? So you have a growing and emerging DeFi ecosystem there that's kind of like still under the radar, and I think it's gonna surprise some people. So yeah, that's probably one of them.
If you were to give a catchphrase for building on the hub, on the Cosmos hub, what would it be?
Catchphrase. I mean, the church says how much worse can it get, right? So that could be the catchphrase. But honestly, if I were to give a catchphrase, I would say build on the innovation hub, right? All the ideas that have come out are going to be coming from Cosmos. So where it all begins, Cosmos, where it all begins. That would be a catchphrase.
Got it. That's a wrap. Thank you so much.
Sweet.